Hey guys, welcome back and thank you for returning. I didn't scare you off, the people that were here last time. And if there's any new people, welcome. Um, let's see. So first of all, today I'm excited because we're going to get into some more tactical stuff and really how to, after the last session where hopefully I convinced you that having a newsletter is a good thing to do. Today we're going to talk about how to actually create one. And hopefully by the end of this, you will have very specific, very simple plan that you can follow to actually map out an issue of your newsletter. So, like I said, today we're going to talk about how to create your newsletter. The first thing, obviously, to creating your newsletter is you need to choose your topic, and I don't mean on an individual issue, although we can get into that in a minute too. But from a broad standpoint, and this is sort of picking up right where we left off last time. As a reminder, I think the best way to come up with your topic is to go through these 4 questions for yourself. The first one being, what's your goal? Why are you doing this? Is it to get clients? Is it to drive sales? Is it to build your audience? Is it to promote your cause? Who do you need to reach to accomplish that goal? What specific audience? Then think about what do those people in that audience value? And ultimately, then how can you provide that value to them in a newsletter on a consistent basis? Again, just a quick reminder, your newsletter isn't necessarily, and most likely will not be, specifically about your product or services. It's more likely to be about something broader and more general that the audience you want to reach will value. So with that in mind, again, a reminder, you're creating a newsletter that has to be valuable, not necessarily product specific. So one of the ways that I think is helpful to think about this, in addition, as you sort of hone in on your topic, is to think about what would be a newsletter that you would sponsor if it existed. Now, maybe it exists, maybe it doesn't, but think about what would be a no-brainer for you to go, wow, if there was a newsletter that had 100, 1,000, a million subscribers, whatever it was, that was about this specific topic, I would absolutely sponsor it because that would so align with what I'm doing. So it's a way to sort of think about this and then flip it and go, well, instead of trying to find that newsletter and sponsor it, why don't I just create that newsletter and own it? So to give you an idea, as you're thinking about this and topics, a lot of people fall into the trap of sort of just thinking about newsletters like the newsletters they've seen, right? Maybe they just think about the Skim or Morning Brew, or they think about it very sort of news specific. Ann Handley, who has a great newsletter called Total Anarchy, she always says the letter part is more important than the news in the term newsletter, right? Your newsletter does not have to be rooted in news. So these are just some examples to give you an idea of newsletters that are out there that are in niches that you may not have thought about, right? The big image here is from the Trapital newsletter, which is all about the business of hip hop. You know, very niche, but for the right brand or product or service, that's super valuable. Slow Chinese is a newsletter that helps non-native Chinese speakers improve their Chinese language skills, aimed at people who do a lot of business in China, but most likely live outside of China. Startup Resources is a newsletter dedicated to delivering startup tools and resources and that kind of thing. So you can see how, depending what your business or brand is, these types of hyper niche, unusual niche newsletters could be very valuable. And that's why I'm suggesting you create your own, especially if it doesn't already exist out there. So you want to choose a topic that will attract the audience you want to reach. So in terms of topic examples, sometimes I have conversations with companies or brands, and what they do doesn't necessarily lead itself to an obvious newsletter about that topic. And I think this is where you want to broaden your understanding, because you're really trying to reach a specific type of people. It doesn't have to be about the thing that you specifically do. So, for example, a logo designs company's newsletter doesn't have to be, and probably shouldn't be, about logos, right? They might have a newsletter about startup advice or advice for founders, because most people that need a logo are startups, right? Or they could go another direction and they could do a newsletter all about rebranding, right? Because anyone interested in rebranding ultimately is probably considering a new logo. A clothing brand, perfect example. If you have a clothing brand designed to appeal to skateboarders, you don't need a newsletter about clothing. You might choose to have a newsletter about skateboarding, right? If you create a newsletter that everyone that's into skateboarding wants to read, you're attracting your target audience who then may also want to buy your clothes. That's a perfect example, as well as I was talking about sort of thinking about it as if what would you sponsor, right? If you are a clothing brand appealing to skateboarders, you would absolutely sponsor a skateboarding newsletter or skateboarder event. So as opposed to investing your money in doing that, why not just build your own and then own it? A software company's newsletter doesn't have to be about software, right? It might be about productivity. If you create a software product that is designed to help people be more productive, then anyone interested in productivity tips and hacks is your target audience. So create a newsletter that is going to attract them.